All right. Hey, Andy, how are you doing today?
I am all right for a Friday.
Hey, hey, it's Friday. It's not Monday.
It is definitely.
So in this video or series of videos, we don't really know yet until we really get into it if we're gonna do this in one or two or God help us three. But we're gonna be talking about the data migration journey, specifically focusing on the P21 process. Now we've touched on some of this stuff before, but I think it was kind of nebulous. So I thought we would just start talking using your experience and me just
Yeah.
staring at the camera.
Yeah, no. I mean, right out of the top, just it's a big event, right? Any type of data migration or implementation project or whatever, it's a huge event. And the tools to help you execute are definitely getting better, but there's still no substitute for actually doing the work. And I know AI is really a hot topic right now and what have you, and it should be. It's a transformative technology. I get that, but it's like any technology. It's an accelerator. So what it's gonna do is take whatever you're doing and make it happen that much faster. So if what you're doing is wrong or bad, you're just gonna get there a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But if so there's just like I can't stress enough. There's not a substitute for a really good, solid foundation, good decision making processes, and things like that. Like AI can automate moving your data, or machine learning, or all these different tools can do stuff, help you do stuff like that. But they can't help you decide.
They shouldn't be thinking for you. They should just,
No,
yeah.
no, yeah, you cannot outsource your critical thinking to it. It's not going to understand the intricacies of your business, no matter how much you train it. You still have decisions that you have to make. So, that's that. I think that to me is important. Specific to data conversion, I believe data conversion, data migration, whatever you want to call it, is one of the most important things. And because it sets the tone for how the average user is going to interact with the system on go live day. It just does. If you've got half your data in there, then expect your users to have one arm tied behind their back, because they don't have access to the information that they used to have. So, we've had, like, I know a lot of times we hear the standard is, oh, we'll bring in 3 years of history. Well, if your business is built on the concept of customers calling in and saying, hey, I bought this in, like, 2016, and now I have this project to do again. We've seen this for things like tooling and stuff like that. You might need 10, 15 years of data. And don't let anyone tell you you don't. You know your business. You
Hmm.
know what's important. And and if those things are key and those things are critical, then you've got to find a way to make that information accessible. Otherwise, you're going to have people bouncing between the two systems and all this other kind of crazy stuff. And so I just, that's a big key of it. Another big key is just, like, again, that completeness and quality of migration. So I don't know. You you're involved in it as much as I am, if not more. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, personally, from work experience, I've every time I go through one of these migrations, my first reaction is I'm never doing that again.
Yeah,
Um,
you
because
might have come to work at the wrong place.
well, yes, but but and it's just going into it. You forget because it's not something you do all the time.
No, it's very unnatural. Yeah.
I mean, I would say a quick turnaround is 5 years. A lot of people will go 10 years plus before they even do it again. Um, and I kind of go back to what you were saying is it's a lot of work from both whoever you're working with, hopefully us, and your internal team because even though we do this for a living, we don't know their business. So there's got to be some, people have to be willing to put in the work, and it's our job to kind of help them understand what work they need to be doing and us, driving them down the right path. But it's a lot of work, and it stinks when you're because I've been on the other side, you've been on the other side. You have your full time job still to do, and you're just putting this on top of it. Um,
Well, I
But
think you touched on something there that we probably haven't really ever tried to like nail down into words, but it's the concept of where's the line between the contractor you hired to do your data conversion and your responsibility on the business side, right, as a customer. And I think probably the best way to look at it is understanding what everyone at the table is an expert in, right? So if you it's real easy to fall into the trap of, well, I'll just do the data conversion myself because I know my business. Okay, you can, and you can do that. I mean, that's not like there's all these magic secrets or anything, right? Like you can get that done. Where we see people get frustrated is they don't understand what the error messages mean. They're not used to working with these high complexity templates. There's things that they may want to put in there that there's not necessarily a template for, but somebody like us, we've got experience, like we know other ways to get the data in there. So I think, if you're going to hire out to do it, that's what you're trying to hire. You're trying to hire the expertise to reduce the friction of whatever the data is, A, getting it extracted from your other system, B, getting it mapped where it's consistent, and then C, getting it into P21 with as little pain as possible. Like that is a one-time event. You will pull data, transform it, and load it. I get it as a process, and you do it a million times in the process, but it's a process you're going to execute on one time,
right, your
and then
final
it's
process
done.
is once.
Yeah, it is. It's over with. So you don't need a functional expert in that, my opinion. What you do need though is when you hire that person or that party or that company to help you with that, you do need to pair them off with someone who understands the business really well and can look at the data and give it context, right?
Hmm.
And tell you, oh, this is how we do this and this is how we do that. Now, for us, we've endeavored to build systems internally that allow us that once you've told us, okay, we understand, we codify that into the application that we're using to make all this happen, and you don't have to tell us again. That's ideal.
Hmm.
Managing it with text files and spreadsheets and all this other stuff is the opposite of ideal. So, uh, anyway, I just thought it was an interesting point that we had never really discussed before. It's just trying to say, look, here's my role, but that doesn't mean you could just say, oh, I'm hiring you to do this, and now I don't ever want to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're thinking you're going to not be involved, you've never been through one of these because you're gonna be involved, but
Yeah,
and that's all through the process. The initial, like
it's a team
mapping.
effort.
Yeah,
It is absolutely a team effort. Um,
you had said foundation. We always talk about this when it comes to data migration, data whatever. Putting up a new ERP, whatever we want to call it. What I don't even know what the official term is anymore. Um, there are some decisions that are you make it at the beginning, and there is no changing it after the fact.
yeah.
And in different ERPs, there are different things, but there are things where even if you try to roll it back, it gets extremely complicated.
Oh, yeah.
Costing is one thing. Like you set Mac or FIFO or whatever, that's what you're using in P21. You don't change it. If you're going
Currency. Like
currency,
we've had two instances in the last year of somebody setting up a country or a company in another country and setting the home currency to US dollars. Then they get halfway through the setup and you're like, yeah, you don't get to change that box.
yeah. So my advice is the data part, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, is one thing, but it's that core settings and setup that you need to make good decisions and understand what that's going to be. Don't just go, oh, we're okay with this, let's just go. Like you need to understand, are you going multi-company, or are you going single company? How are you going to run your business or businesses in this ERP, hopefully P21 with Atlas? Because it's hard to roll that stuff back, or impossible in some cases.
You're doing a fantastic job of just working those plugs in.
I'm
I
trying.
just
I'm
I
trying.
just want to let you know that I mean it's really well done. It's extremely subtle. Like the only
Told us.
thing we could do more subtle is have like a half-second flash up on screen that says hire us and just go
Well,
subliminally.
I
But I think
mean,
that's illegal.
I'm still working on
Um
my shirt that says "Hire Us," and then, well, yeah.
So look, we've got a really long outline here, and I think both of us knew there was no way we were going to get the whole thing done. So here, I'm looking at it again, and as we're starting this conversation, here's what I think. I know we have a lot of granularity around like how to do the company structures, core data, static data, transactional data. To me, those four things, that's a video.
Yep.
Because that's very much like the technicals.
Hmm.
And then we've got some other stuff down here about training and processes and tools and logistical challenges. And
Hmm.
that's more, I think those points probably hit more to what we've already been talking about. So I'm going to suggest we just go ahead and skip down to processes and tools.
Okay.
We'll cover the rest of the outline, and then let's come back, and everybody will be back in another week or so, hopefully. And we'll discuss the technicals of actually going through a P21 data conversion. Does that work for you?
That sounds perfect to me.
Yeah, because this would be 2-3 hours,
Yeah, and we're
I
trying not to
don't
do
want to
that.
hear me for that long.
No, we're trying not to do that. And if you guys are watching this and we're back on YouTube, your feedback is crucial for us. You know, topics you want to hear us talk about, things you like, things you don't like. There's a comment section for a reason. I mean, we heard it a lot back at WUG. You
Yeah,
know that
yeah,
people
it was
wanted
amazing.
more. We just want to make sure we're putting out content that people find useful, and we also still enjoy doing because we
Yeah,
have to
no, it's
enjoy
fun.
because we're not making money
Absolutely.
doing this. We're just enjoying doing it.
I don't even think we've qualified for the partner program.
No,
I know we
no.
were getting close, and I'm really looking forward to that 18 cents a month
I mean, I'm going to
when we hit
retire.
that milestone. I really am.
I'm going to retire off of
Um,
18 cents.
yeah.
All right.
So processes and tools. That I mean, look, the whole you hear this term all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's called ETL, and it's got to do with moving data between systems, and it's three letters in the acronym: E for extract, T for transform, and L for load. And that's exactly what the operation is for a data migration. You have to extract it from your legacy system. You have to transform it to prep it for your new system, and then you actually have to load it into the new system. And so this subject applies not just for data conversion, but anytime if we're trying to move data from a system to a data warehouse, or we're doing an integration with HubSpot or ShipStation or Magento, like just the EDI implementations. We do all of these things, by the way. Here's me doing plugs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all the same principle. I've got to get it out of one system. I've got to get it flipped around, prepare it to go into the other system, and then I've got to actually get it into the other system. So, unfortunately, this is October of 2025, end of October 2025. Excel is probably still the world's most popular database, which is scary.
Mm-hmm.
But we still see, like, and probably always will, this amazing amount of reliance on Excel as a tool. But extraction is a big one, and so it's all about how are we going to get the data out of the system. And um, we've seen that done a lot of different ways. We've seen people export Excel. We've seen people export text files. We've seen whatever. Our strong preference um, is we have to find a way to establish connectivity to that data source that's repeatable. And so, for us personally, we've built tools that just do extraction. And so once we tool it up and configure it, and then it's just push this button, and all of the data that you want, the way that you want it, with the filters that you want on it, it comes out. It's raw. It's not. It is just whatever was in your other system, but it's out now. We've got it out. We've got it into. We usually use SQL Server because that's what P21 is built on. We're all very comfortable with it. We get it out and get it into SQL Server. Now we can actually work with it. So I think that's one thing you want to give a lot of thought to, is how are we going to extract this data, because the extraction needs to be extremely consistent. Like if you want to pull invoices from 2022 and forward, then that's what you need to do. And you need it to be that way every time. You don't want to say, "Oh, I forgot to configure this thing," And
Hmm.
I got invoices from 2024 forward, and now I'm missing 2 years of data, and all of this work I just did on this test load just went to waste. I am a big believer that this should be highly repetitive. By the time, like, customers and vendors are like a couple of the first sets that you'll load. By the time you get done and get ready to go live, you probably should have done those two sets 50 times.
Hmm.
Like, it shouldn't even be a question whether or not that's going to work. Data conversion should be a very low risk proposition. It really should be, because it's so repeatable and so able to be semi-automated, to where you just like do this, do this, do this, that you shouldn't be guessing whether or not the data is going to be right by the time you're doing it for real. That shouldn't happen.
Right.
It amazes me how much it does, but it shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, when you're doing some kind of experiment or scientific study or whatever, you need to have repeatable, controllable circumstances to count on the results that you're getting. And it's really kind of the same way with this. Is I know when we do this, by the time we go live on a weekend for this, that should be the easy part, because we've done it a dozen times before that we press those buttons and go live. Um, Not saying that there's, oh my God, things can't happen, but it shouldn't be, well, these items aren't going in. Why aren't these items going in? Those shouldn't be the
Exactly.
questions you have. If you're having those questions, then you probably didn't work with us. But I'm just saying.
Wow. So, and I think the other thing too of the reason that this stuff is important is because you're already going to have a million puzzles to solve on go live day. And so if your data is a variable in that equation, that's the foundation for everything. So if you don't know that your data is tight and it's the way you want it, and that you've loaded it the way that you tested it, then you're going to have all of these issues and won't even know where to start looking yet, because the data itself has so much variability in it that you don't know what to do with it. And so that kind of gets into the transformation, which is really just about having tools that allow you to say, okay, my data sits in my legacy system this way. It needs to go into a P21 or my new system another way. I have to remap that,
Hmm.
and I have to make that work. And that's where people get in trouble, because it's like they try to do it by sticky note, where it's like, okay, I bring it into Excel and then I run this formula and this formula and this formula and this formula, and oh, wait a minute, the fifth time we did this, we decided we were going to do this other thing, but nobody remembered to put it into the Excel spreadsheet, or it's offset by one row, or it's, oh, that's a different version of the spreadsheet I was using, or one of a bajillion other ways for that to go sideways. And then the conversion's inconsistent. And so we really we want an approach that, like I said before, when we are told this is where this needs to be mapped to,
Hmm.
we want to make this decision one time and never ever
Right.
revisit it.
Set
Like,
it and
we
forget
know
it.
if you say this field is going to be class 1 in P21, once it's set, it's set.
Right. We don't have to ask again.
Yeah, and look, again, the consistency of doing it that way makes troubleshooting so much easier. We're having an issue right now, with a in post implementation, where there's a bunch of freight failures with third party billing, and we know all the mappings were right, and so, like, we don't even have to look at that. And so what we're finding out is, oh no, there's legitimately, like, the data was not clean. It, like, these account numbers are legitimately incorrect. For instance, they're trying to ship FedEx and it's a UPS account number, and you go back to source, nope, that it was set up that way in source too. So, uh, but we don't have to sit here and pour through all these spreadsheets and code and all this stuff to try to figure it out. Like, we knew that was fine. We can just start working backwards from where the problem's occurring to figure out what the root is. And, oh, okay, it's a bad data point. Fix the data point. This goes away.
Yeah.
Fix the address. It goes away. Whatever. There's a bad zip code. Well, that's a big deal when you're trying to build third party. So, and again, Matt mentioned it. It's an iterative approach. This is something you're doing over and over and over and over again. I've seen it done where it's like, okay, we're going to give you sort of a trial run load, then we'll do one more test load, and then we're going live. I don't see how that's possible. I really, truly don't. I mean, like, to me, I want to do this 5, 6, 7, 8 times. We need to do it until we've done one and you say, this is perfect.
Right.
And, or as perfect as we can make it. So that we say, great, we've got the process nailed down. We know every move that needs to be made. Everything is documented. When we do this for real, it's going to look just like this. It just has to be. So, so what's the right number of test loads?
As many as it takes
to get it right. And then I think and that pretty much covers the load aspect of it. Loading the P21, you're either keying it, you're loading it with text files through either manual imports or scheduled import service manager.
And I think it's always going to be it's going to be a combination of those. I mean, there are certain things that, and we could talk about this in the more data centric conversation, but there are always things that have to be keyed in. There are always things that don't work in certain instances. Speaking of not working, a lot of people coming to P21, pretty much everybody knew, is being hosted by Epicor in their cloud platform. Now we still have people that are on-prem. We have people that are on-prem that are bringing new companies or starting new businesses in their existing on-prem. I know there are certain limitations or there were certain limitations. I'm not sure what's still a limitation on what, because by design, P21 has certain import structures and documents that you're supposed to be using to bring in a lot of this data. Now you can automate a lot of that, but there are things like secondary processes or things like that don't have an import. Whereas if they're on-prem, you can obviously, create some custom tables and, push that data and do direct SQL. But what about hosted? How do you?
Yeah. All right. Well, again, let's mark the time one more time. It's October of 2025, and that's important because the gap between what you can do administratively on-prem and what you can do administratively in Epicor's public cloud.
So they've made some big strides in the last updates.
And that gap is closing, and it's closing quickly.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of talk through that. One thing you said, you're always going to have to key stuff in. What that stuff is, some of it, you don't have a choice, right? Like certain core data, whatever your carriers are, this, that, and the other, you just need to key that stuff in. Other things, you really need to think about whether the juice is worth the squeeze. So like you brought up secondary processes and predefined routes. If you've got 50 of them, key them in.
Yeah.
Just be done with it.
Yeah.
If you've got 500 and they're intricate, okay, now it's like probably worth trying to figure out how to get them in. Now, back in the day, before the API was all over the place and a lot of people had it, and all of that, when everyone was on premise for the most part, yeah, of course, the only way to get that stuff done in batch was we have to design custom database procedures and things like that to safely insert these things. That was like a staple bread and butter way of getting things done for years. We've backed off of that huge. Mm-hmm. On-prem, in the cloud, it doesn't matter. And the reason being is now the toolkit to not have to do that has advanced to a point where we didn't. So to your point, do we have stored procedures that can insert processes and routes? Sure we do. But does that mean we can't do that in the cloud? If you have the API license, yeah, I think we can. It's just now, again, that means we got to write some custom API calls and do a bunch of stuff. So we need to make sure that it's worth the investment. And like I said, 10, 15, 20, 50 records to enter, it's not worth it. I promise you don't want to pay any program.
And we will tell you that straight to your face. Absolutely. that no, don't pay us to do that. We wouldn't be worth the conversation for you, for the customer.
Yeah. The biggest limitation
as of October 24th, 2020.
My problem is I know ways around all of them, right? Yeah. So like I was going to say, one of the big limitations is when we went from desktop to web, the imports used to give you like real-time immediate feedback, and now they don't. But you can also go sit there and monitor the log file in the back end and get the same result. So I don't really know that I would say that there are limitations per se. I can't think of any that cannot technically be overcome.
Yeah, it just may take, like you said, owning the API license
Yeah,
and things like that. Which honestly, in this day and age,
you need to have it
you
because
need to.
everybody wants something to plug in.
Right. Now, not saying there aren't people that, because we have customers that are 10 users, you know,
Sure. And
those
they have no
people,
use for that.
no, and those people are going to be able to key their stuff in that, they're not, if they're only 10 user environment, they're probably not having thousand. I think when my previous company, we went live with the predefined routings and stuff that you helped us with. God, I think we had like 5,000 or 6,000.
Yeah, it was thousands.
I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, we're not typing any of those in. So
No,
so
not
that,
for what it took to write it and make it work.
which is funny because if you go back and watch, probably because we've touched on this topic a couple times, um, the conversation is very different versus hosted on-prem than it is right now. Um, and to be honest, a lot of people in our sphere were fighting against having to deal with the hosted because it was more complicated, and our thought process was we have to figure it out. Like there's no way around it. This is the path forward for P21, and I think it's kind of interesting because I think it adds a little bit more challenge sometimes
It does.
to think outside the box.
But the other thing about it too is, and let me just like for anyone that's really like struggling with that decision, you should make it based on what's right for you as a company. Don't and if you want our advice on that, we'll give it. But we've got 10 user installs that are still on premise, and we've got multi hundreds of user installs for extremely large companies doing extremely complex customized stuff in the public cloud. Now, Matt's right, it completely changes your approach to how you're trying to do that at scale on servers you don't control. You can't, like, those are some of the limitations for me on the technical side that are challenging. Like, I can't just go in and see what's going on in the server. I can't just go in and say we're going to restart IIS, or we're going to bring these pools down, and we're going to do this or this or that. You can't do any of that. So you have to think about, like, you've got to architect your solutions in a way that is cognizant that you don't have that type of control. But I think we've done it enough now where we've written full blown high complexity, high scale bolt on applications that they're a P21 menu item, and you just click on it and it opens up this other website. There you go. It works. And then that means we have a lot of conversations about, well, how real time does this really need to be? And you flush all that out on discovery. But it's 100% possible. And again, it's just all what's right for you as a company. So differences and limitations, very
Don't
few limitations now. It's listen, I'm getting to the point where, like, if you tell me, oh yeah, we're hosted P21, I'm like, that's awesome. I don't have to worry about your VPN. I don't have to worry about how to get access to your remote desktop servers. I'm like, cool, add me to your P21 and I'll be in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I'll say one last thing, and then I want to move on to the next topic because to me, it's a very important topic that gets overlooked in this process. The hosted versus on-prem. Don't worry about what can or can't be done because, like Andy said, that's getting narrower and narrower, and we can't really think of anything huge that we haven't been able to do. But don't make it in a vacuum. Don't make that choice in a vacuum. Have the discussion. Does it matter? Are you reporting to a bigger company that may have a problem with a public cloud? Like, there are conversations that you need to have. Don't.
Yeah, compliance. Like, if you're doing work with the Department of Defense, that's a conversation, right? Like, okay, they have extreme security requirements around where data lives, is it encrypted at rest, all these other kinds of things, right? And so that's a real conversation. Access controls and the granularity of that. Um, if you have other types of security concerns, if you have any of these type of special regulatory cases, those are good things. When people ask me, the first place I go is OpEx versus CapEx, right? Like, well, I don't want to buy servers or this or that or the other. Like, both of them have an OpEx component. On-prem, you're still paying for support and licensing. And in the cloud, you're paying for that plus the hosting and all of that, right? And I don't know what the prices are. But for me, like in our business, we've always leaned to go on premise because I'm the type of person that says I can buy that server, I can pay for it, and then I own it, and I don't have this operational cost that goes along with it every month, other than the electricity, right? Which is nothing. Um, so those are the reasons you should be making the decision about cloud versus on-prem. You've got a terrible internet connection, or you've got this problem or that problem, or your team's dispersed and you don't have connectivity between them. Those are the things that you should be thinking about, not the technicals of what's it going to be like to go live, or what can I do in one that I can't the other. It's the same P21.
All right. Well, I want to move on to a topic that, again, I feel like either gets looked over or waits till the last minute or waits till after they go live. And it's actually the topic that kind of, when we relaunched this YouTube channel, I think it's like 2 years ago now, we started putting out 1.5 to 5 minute long training videos just to help people out. And it's that trainer and user adoption that gets there. You always have these one or two people that have been working in a lot that know it, but it doesn't get dispersed out. So I want to kind of go over the things that we've seen in that, and maybe some suggestions on how people should handle that process.
First off, be realistic about human beings in the 21st century.
Nobody likes
okay?
change, for one thing.
Nobody likes change, and nobody's going to read your 400-page user manual.
No,
It ain't happening.
Nope.
We are in a attention economy.
There's a reason why our videos are 1.5 to 5 minutes long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just tell me what I want to know and let me go about my day. That's what it is. That's why our content is split up the way that it is. We have this longer form platform where we do these deep dives on these topics because at a strategic level or management level, whatever level, they're important and someone needs to talk about it. But if you just want to know how to change supplier pricing or enter an order,
right,
you don't need an hour-long video on that. And no one's going to consume it that way. And so I agree with Matt. Like, right off the top, you've got to have a training regimen that lets people, first off, everybody's got a job already, right? Like expecting, obviously you want them in the play system. Obviously you want them to get their feet wet and understand how to do things. There are times where we've said, hey, yeah, you've got a couple of hundred orders, but if we disperse them out amongst your 10 CSRs, that will be very good training for them to get that in. And you're right at that break point where importing orders probably doesn't make sense. So let's just do that. And it'll be a good training exercise. And it becomes part of the plan. But delivering knowledge in bite-sized, digestible chunks, to me, is supremely important. And that's why Matt did all the 1 to 5 minute videos. That's it.
Yeah. And there are different approaches, right? The train the trainer is a very popular one, where you have a team of 5 to 10 people, depending on the size of your company, a team of 5 to 10 people that are Uber users that know this stuff. And then you send those people out to help, disperse that knowledge. I did the classroom style training to start off with, where we actually brought in those train the trainers and sat them down on PCs. But the trick was, you don't just tell them, go do it. I gave them basically a script or a playbook to follow. Enter this order, enter this, do this. Because what you'll see a lot of time, people are like, oh, I entered this 1-line order. Cool. Yeah, this works or that works. Or even, that can get saved for testing a customization. they need to be realistic things. Like if your orders are normally 50 to 75 items with kits and this, that's what you should be testing with. Don't test with um, one line orders, because that's basic. Sure, everybody can do that, but it's not realistic either. Most companies don't have one line orders.
And you need to differentiate between data that's originating in P21 and data that originated in another system, because a lot of times you're making concessions and saying when we import we're not going to have this, but for anything new that goes in we will.
Right.
Oh, we'll just use our old customer IDs and set up search. Well, that's great until you start creating customers in P21, and then they don't have a legacy ID. And so it's a lot of these things where it just rip the band-aid off. You're going to be on this, you're buying the system for the next decade at least.
Yeah.
Just rip the band-aid off.
I mean, it's an expensive investment. You hopefully you get a decade out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're ripping the band-aid off. And if you're going through this process, your go live date will most likely get pushed. That's just a normal part of this process. But if you're holding out until everything's going to be 100% perfect and everybody knows how to do everything, you're probably never going to go live.
Nope. Here's
Now,
my sage advice: do not let perfect become the enemy of excellent.
there you go. I mean, it's not like I'm not, when I say that, this is past all of the important foundation decisions. Those need to be perfect for your company as far, or right for your company. I'm more talking about on, Timmy needs to be able to enter 50 orders in 5 minutes, or it's not going to happen. It's not realistic. Don't shoot for that. You need to shoot for where you have any go live. You're going to need an internal group of people that can be available at any point in time. Hey, I'm struggling with, I mean, my last go live that I was actually leading, my email became like a ticker. Like it didn't stop because people were having all kinds of problems. But that's normal. I mean, they're going to have to adjust, but don't wait until
And look, 70% of your people are not going to do the work ahead of time.
right.
They're not.
Nope.
If you're lucky, 30% will.
Yep. And
And that's not because they're bad people.
it's because
It's
they have
just
jobs.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is why I say, again, yeah, I'm plugging our YouTube channel. Believe me, like I said, we don't make any money off of it, so it's not a revenue
We
play.
actually technically probably lose money because we could be charging for these calls.
This is true. But like, we wanted to create something where if someone is having trouble entering an order, they can just go get help for that thing immediately and get past their problem and move on. That's the type of reinforcement and resource availability and stuff like that you're really going to want to have available, and like, be able to send people to a place where it's like, this is how you get help, and you're just, it's all hands on deck until everybody gets stabilized and understands what they're doing.
Yeah, and again, not to toot, we've had people say, "Hey, I use your videos as part of my onboarding process or training process."
We encourage it.
Which our stuff is vanilla out of the box. Now, if your business has done some important customizations or different systems or integrations, you may need to do some internal videos. But I think it's a lot more, people, like you said, are more responsive to a video than you sending them a 3-page document of how to enter a line in. Like it should be, here's a minute video on how to do this. And I mean, when for our go live at my previous company, I think I had recorded 150 videos before we went live, and because it was very specific to our business, where ours is more focusing on, this is how P21
blocking and tackling.
Yeah, this is how but 90% of your process is going to be out of the box at least. And you may have some weird UDFs or processes where, oh, if it's going here, you have to change this class to that or whatever. But it's better than nothing. Like, you don't want to just throw somebody to the wolves.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we actually had a customer come to us and say, "Hey, look, we're doing this big internal knowledge base project, and we're going to use an AI chatbot to help our users access it. Can we train it with all y'all's content from your website and your YouTube channel?" And I had data security and privacy things that I needed answered, but those went the right way. And I was like, yeah, do it, absolutely. I mean, that's what it's there for. But other vehicles to do that are, we've done situations where they're live for 4 or 5 months, and it's like, okay, now I just have some fundamental questions about the way things work. We do virtual lunch and learns all the time, where we will either live stream or whatever, but just for a client, and they'll bring 15 people in, and it'll just be a Q&A of, hey, how do I do this? What's this? What's that? Just to try to build some more of that foundational knowledge. That kind of stuff really helps. Again, no matter how miserable you are trying to support it and get everybody on their feet, everyone around you is equally miserable trying to figure out this new system. So just the main thing is just keep your feet on the ground and keep an open mind, and people wouldn't be asking if they didn't need help.
Right. And the biggest thing is, like, have a plan. Have a plan. Have the resources ready to go. And like you said, people are frustrated with change. They don't like change. But if they're asking questions, that's a good thing, because that means they're not just making their own decision and potentially doing something that could cause a problem 6 months down the road when you realize they've been doing it the wrong way.
I'm gonna modify the statement a little bit. We
Okay.
always talk about people are change resistant.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what it is. I think we are discomfort resistant. We
Okay.
don't like things as human beings, because now if we take it away from a change management exercise and start expressing it in terms of comfort, it makes a lot more sense to me, right? Like you live in the South, I live in the South. You want to go a summer without air conditioning? No,
No.
because we don't like being uncomfortable. None of us like being uncomfortable about anything. As human, that's part of our survival instinct as a species, right? Don't be uncomfortable. It is cold. Go inside. Something like that. This is an extension of that. This is just an extension of our natural desire to be in a comfortable spot. Think about any change you've ever had to make in your life. You have to grind that habit. You have to work to get out of your comfort zone. If you didn't, then everyone would be a trillionaire,
Yeah,
right?
it's like coming from the widget world into the consulting world.
Yeah, that is a huge comfort zone move. And
trust me, it is.
and everyone that works here has had to make it, and
Yeah.
it's hard.
It's yeah, that's a good way to. I think you're right, because now you say it that way, I can think about just life in general, being comfortable or not being comfortable, and you get in your comfort zone. That's why they call it your comfort zone.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so people they form those habits, they get into that comfort zone, and these are habits that have been formed and ingrained over however long you've been on that system, or however long they've worked there, whichever is shorter. And now you're saying in one day, there's not a slow ramp up.
No.
There's not we're going to ease into this. In one day, we're changing all of it. And I think as leaders and as trainers and as people that have to support this stuff, we lose sight of that a lot. And it's not because we mean to. It just, you got a million things going on. It just doesn't occur to you that
we're probably
there's
also
humans on the
uncomfortable.
end of the keyboard.
We're probably also uncomfortable too through
Yeah.
this whole process.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like again, nobody's going to be perfectly trained, but you have to have a plan and put the effort into the training and the testing. That's what your play system's for. I mean, and there are some people that will learn on their own better than others, and if you can identify those people, those are your train the trainer people. I mean, I and a lot of the people that work here learn P21 by just getting there and bashing it. And what happens if I click this? Which is fine in the play system. Don't do that in the live system.
No.
But again, it's important, and there needs to be some kind of structure on who's going to help who. I know not everybody likes email groups, but it's very useful. If when we went live, we had like 8 of us in that group, and as time went on, we started taking more people out until it came down to just 2 or 3 people that needed to really help. But make sure you focus on the helping the people, because they make your money for you.
They do. I mean, that's the whole thing. The tech is not hard. The tech is just what it is. It's extremely consistent in the way that it operates. Once you get the results you want, you're always going to get them. It's the change management aspect, and it's that cultural shift. It's like doing a heart transplant on your company. It really is. So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, and I know we wanted to do a different video on the data stuff, because we could probably talk for 2 hours on the data side of stuff. Is there anything that else that relating to just going through this process or the training that we want to put in here, so we can kind of button this up? Because guys, we're trying to keep these hour and below to make them more digestible for you guys.
For sure. So no, I think we've done a pretty good job covering it. I mean, obviously, if people are left with questions, ask them, and we can maybe try to assemble that into some sort of a response or additional content or something like that. I mean, yeah, I think it's just it. I just can't stress enough that it's really important to build a good, solid foundation. I know we kind of got into topics a little bit beyond data migration, but your data is at the core. So its quality of execution of getting that into the new system is extremely important. It drives everything, and that's why, like, people struggle when a lot of times when they try to do it on their own, is because it's not that they're not technically competent to do a file import. It's that they may not understand the meaning of a certain setting, like max shipments. And then you set that to 1 or 2, and all of a sudden you can't figure out why you're not getting pick tickets when you receive for a back order. Or we're just going to set all of our customers to order complete. And then all of a sudden you can't figure out why pick tickets don't print for partials.
Or making every single item stockable so your porg looks insane.
Yeah. So yeah, that's always a big one for you. So I think it's important to have a partner that does understand all of that stuff. And when you come to that data set and you're talking about how we're going to load customers, how we're going to load vendors, remember, you're probably coming off of a less complicated system to go to P21. So it's going to have more features and settings and impactful things that your existing data doesn't even account for. And so you have to make a lot of decisions and say, well, if they meet these criteria, we want them to be partial. These, we want them to be order complete. These types of customers, we want them to go on hold, whatever. Like, all of that stuff is going to go into your operational flow on the first day. So the more of those problems you can minimize, the better off you're going to be.
Yep.
That's all I got, Matt.
Yeah, like I said, it's a long process. It's a hard process, but it's worth it if you do it right. Especially, the joke everybody likes to kind of harp on, P21, this P, but we wouldn't be doing this if it actually wasn't a useful system and it has its strong points. Our job is to help you get onto those and then modify it in ways that maybe is a little unique for your business. But it doesn't matter if it's P21 or if it's any other ERP. The same theory is true. Foundation, understanding what's coming from what to P21, and then your train is super important. But yeah,
sure.
So we'll come back with another video, hopefully in a week or so. We're not setting
calendar.
We're not trying to hold ourselves to a set schedule, but also, please, if you're watching any of this stuff, we love feedback. We love ideas. Yeah. Even if it's something that's only going to be a 20-minute video. Andy would love a 20-minute video because he can go back to doing some coding. So anyways, thanks guys, and we'll see you around.
All right.